Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's John Campea, and this is a companion video. What is a companion video? I'm glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show and when we do open mics, we take live questions from the audience. However, we don't always have time to get around to answering all the live questions that get sent in, but I want to make sure those questions get answered. So what we do is we gather up those unused questions, we put them over here, and we address them in companion videos. And that's what we're going to do here today. So let's start getting caught up here on all the questions that have been sent in. And we're going to start things off today with the first email we're getting caught up with is from Jewish Singer 613, who writes, I saw Bohemian Rhapsody in both Dolby and Prime. Prime seems to have more enhanced bass and extra seat rumbling and brighter screens, while Dolby seems to have better surround sound accuracy. Okay, so this is a question that's been going on for a while, because remember, Dolby at AMC Prime used to be one and the same thing. And then recently what we've seen is some AMC theaters have a Dolby theater and a Prime theater as two separate theaters. What's the difference? I had somebody from AMC contact me and basically say to me, the only real difference is that in the Dolby cinema, they have that Dolby dual laser projection system. So the projection is not your traditional bulb with a projector. It's dual lasers that create the image on a screen. That gives you brighter brights, darker darks, richer colors. It's just a superior picture. The Prime theater, I believe, is identical, except they use what's called a dual xenon bulb. So it's a bulb, like a traditional sort of thing, a little bit more advanced. It's a great picture, it's a great image, but not quite the dual laser. So from what I understand, that is the difference between the two. But, you know, I've gone to a Prime theater, I've gone to a Dolby theater. I think you can notice the difference with the dual laser system, but honestly, that's the only difference I've noticed between the two. So maybe there's more differences, maybe there's not, but that's all I know for now. All right, next one comes from Senpaigar, who writes, Bumblebee may be bad, but the G1 fan of me that grew up with the Transformers is very excited for the movie, even if the G1 character design robots aren't in the movie that much. Hey, look, I was all for when the first Transformers movie was coming out, and we got a look at what the Transformers would look like, and they weren't the traditional G1 look. It was an update thing. I was all for it. I was totally fine with it. Because, hey, that's probably more what they really would look like than these boxy 90-degree angle metal things, right? But that's not to say I wouldn't have been thrilled to see the G1 designs. When that Bumblebee trailer came out, that latest Bumblebee trailer, and they have the G1 designs. You see the G1 Optimus Prime, the G1 Starscream, the G1 Soundwave with Ravage ejecting out of them. That's a whole lot of geek boner right there. That's some serious geek boner right there. And I'm thrilled to see it. So it'll be interesting to see how they play it in there, but I'm looking forward to seeing those as well. And just like you, it doesn't matter how much of it they show and how much they don't. I'm just going to be excited to see a little bit of it. That'll be great. All right. Next one comes to us from Marie Ciphering, who writes, but I never taught you to lie. Thanos to Gamora in Infinity War. That was a good line. And one of the really good things about the line was that it highlighted for us that Thanos saw himself as the righteous one. He saw himself as the good guy. And he usually saw himself in light of being in the morally correct spot, even if he wasn't, and he wasn't. But even if he wasn't, that's how he saw himself. And him saying that to her put such an exclamation point on it. I just loved it. I just love that line. It's fantastic. All right. Totes 1829 writes, Detective Pikachu looks so damn good. I don't know how good it looks, but I will say, I have been thinking this is a dumb idea for a movie. And then the trailer came out, charmed me. Totally charmed me. I'm not willing to say the movie's going to be awesome. I'm not there yet. But I will say this trailer was a whole lot better than I was expecting. It's suggesting to me, I should say, it suggests to me that the movie's going to have a lot of charm. The humor seems right on. Somebody wrote in and said, it almost felt like Deadpool was voicing Pikachu instead of Ryan Reynolds. And I thought about that for a second. I thought, you know what? You're right. It really does sound like Pikachu is being voiced by Deadpool. And that's kind of what it felt like. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the movie as well, man. Static Space Sean writes, Think Well See RC car in TS4. He's my favorite toy. I'm assuming you mean Wheel C. Guys, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I always ask you guys, please don't write in short form. Don't write acronyms. Just write out the name of the movie you're talking about, because I don't know what that is off the top of my head. Maybe if I sat and thought about it for 5 minutes, I'd come up with it. But off the top of my head, I don't know it. So sorry, man, I can't answer the question. Thien Ho writes, what a man can do, another man can do. From one of the most underrated movies ever, The Edge, with Alec Baldwin and Sir Anthony Hopkins. That movie, if you haven't seen The Edge, screw The Revenant. Okay, screw that movie and their little bear. The Edge is amazing. These guys go down in a plane in the middle of the woods, and a bear catches their track, and it's basically them against a bear. And that's basically the movie. And there's this scene in the movie where Alec Baldwin's ready to give up, and Anthony Hopkins is like, no, I'm going to kill the bear. And what one man can do, another man can do. And he gets Alec. It's a great scene. One of my all-time most underrated movies ever. No one ever talks about The Edge, and they totally should. I think it's one of the greats. Like I said, one of the most underrated movies ever. Go see The Edge if you get a chance. Gabe Schembarger writes, watching Batman, the animated series on DC Universe, it's so good. Oh, man, yeah. The original animated series was it was kid-friendly yet mature all at the same time. You know? It was both kid-friendly and mature all at the same time. And the noir feel to it, it's great. I mean, there's many ways you can watch the animated series, but it is one of the perks of having the DC streaming services. You can watch the old animated series, which is great. Not enough for me to get the animated, or not enough for me to get the streaming service, but that would be one of the perks for sure, Gabe. All right. Trail Shredder Juan Malagon writes, sad day for all comic fans. I feel like actual loss of a close. Clearly, this was an email, a live message that came in shortly after Stan Lee passed away. Sad day for all comic fans. I feel like I actually lost a close relative. May Stan Lee, I'm going to assume you meant rest in peace. And we've gone on for a couple of weeks now about the tremendous loss the loss of Stan Lee was. But again, celebrating the life that he had, 95 years old, and he lived it richly, and he was sharp right up to the end. And he engaged with the fandom, and he was there at all the premieres, and he just made his presence felt. What a life. What a life to be celebrated for sure. Let's see. Ali Hussein writes, he left a legacy that people is going to remember for generations to come. R.I.P. Stan Lee, man of legend. You know what? The funny thing is, a lot of people who are mourning Stan Lee don't even realize how important he was. There's a book I've been recommending lately that actually one of the viewers recommended to me, and I checked it out. It's called Slugfest, the 50-Year War Between Marvel and DC. If you really want to know the influence of Stan Lee with the whole comic book genre, you gotta read or listen to that book. It's phenomenal. Make sure you check it out. Run Amok Design writes, first, R.I.P. Stan Lee. I'm looking forward to Michael Pena and Narcos. Followed his career from The Shield, End of Watch, Ant-Man, and lots more. I love Michael Pena. I watched Narcos Mexico. I'll say this. It's good. It's not as good as Narcos Season 1. It's not as good as Narcos Season 2. But it's good. It's very good. And I gotta say, at first it's a little jarring to me because recently we've become so climatized to Michael Pena as a amazing comedic presence, right? But he can turn on dramatic acting. But I'll admit, it took me a couple of episodes to shift gears in my head watching him in Narcos Mexico, because I'm finding myself, what I did was I found myself for the first number of, maybe the first full episode, maybe a little bit into the second episode, waiting for him to drop a gag. Or he's saying something, and then waiting for a punchline, right? Because we're just climatized like that. That's what we're used to with Michael Pena recently. But he's a damn fine actor. He did a really good job. Again, I didn't like it as much as Narcos Season 1 or Season 2, but it's definitely worth watching it. Diego Luna's also very good in it. But yeah, Michael Pena is definitely worth watching. All right. Cobra writes, my top 3. Number 3, Amazing Spider-Man. The Amazing Spider-Man #1, 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and #1 debut. I assume you're talking about the Stan Lee cameos. We talked on one of my shows a week or two ago about favorite Stan Lee cameos. And Amazing Spider-Man 1, which I believe is the library scene, I think that's on my list. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, that's definitely on the list when he's sitting there with the Watchers. Amazing. But forever and always, like you and I are totally on the same page on this, Koba. Forever and always, the best Stan Lee cameo will always be the cameo in Deadpool 1. Stan Lee as a strip club DJ. How perfect is that? It was just great. You can't buy love, but you can rent it for 3 minutes or however. Great. I mean, nothing will ever top that. To me, nothing will ever top that. I know Stan Lee has already pre-filmed a number of other cameos, but to me, nothing will ever top that. Boom, best one ever. Let's see. I don't get likes, writes. Being 95, I knew it was coming. That Stan Lee was 95. But I'm still shook. This man is the main reason I like comic book movies and shows. R.I.P. Stan Lee. I don't know if I'd say he's the main reason we like comic book movies. I mean, other than his hand in his part in the creation of these characters, and his very influential part in the formation of the comic book industry, he didn't have a lot to do with the creation of these movies. So I don't know if he's the main reason we like comic book movies or not. I mean, that's probably more a Kevin Feige thing or something else. But still, you cannot discount the role he played from the beginning. We don't have what we have today if it wasn't for guys like Stan Lee and doing what he did in his life. Ali Hussein writes, do you think he finished his cameo for Captain Marvel and Avengers 4 and Spider-Man Far From Home? Well, I mean, those movies had all finished. They're all wrapped shooting. So I'm sure he had finished those anyway. But remember, a while ago, there was a report that Stan Lee went in for a day or two to film a bunch of cameos, to pre-film a bunch of cameos. And the rationale behind that wasn't morbid. It wasn't just in case Stan dies. It wasn't that. It was, like we shoot these things in Atlanta. Stan Lee is 93 at the time, 93, 94 years old. Do we 3 or 4 times a year want to make this guy fly across the country, put him up in a hotel, make him be away from home, blah, blah, to shoot every time we want to do a cameo? How about we make his life easier and we just have him come out and we shoot, like we do a day of shooting with him and we shoot like 5, 6, 7 cameos. That's what I understand. I don't know if that's 100% true, but that's my understanding of what happened. So yes, I completely expect to see a Stan Lee cameo in Captain Marvel. I completely expect to see a Stan Lee cameo in Avengers 4. And I completely expect to see a Stan Lee cameo in Spider-Man Far From Home. And I fully expect to see 1 or 2 after that as well. But man, I know I talked about this before on the show. One of the things now I am so looking forward to is the first screening of Captain Marvel and Stan Lee shows up. I think that's going to be a Super Bowl-like atmosphere in the theaters. I think it's going to be, I think you're going to hear like huge applause and ovations like you've never heard for something like this before. I seriously think when Stan Lee pops up in Captain Marvel, it's going to be a Super Bowl-like atmosphere. I think people are going to go nuts. And I can't wait. I'm getting chills thinking about it. I can't wait to be a part of that. I think that's going to be great, and that's going to be awesome. Let's see. Brian Paz writes, look at the Die Hard 30th Anniversary Blu-ray box art. I think I've seen it. I don't know if you mean anything specific, but anyway. Rogue Mammoth writes, hey, John, I love Rocky 4, and I'm really looking forward to Creed 2. However, I'm afraid that it will humanize Ivan Drago too much from the machine-like freak of nature he was in Rocky 4. Well, hold on, Rogue. That's a bad thing to hope for. That's wishing that he just stays the same. This character is 100% exactly the same as he was 30 years ago. That's not a good thing to hope for. That's not real. That's not real life. That's not how characters should see. Characters shouldn't be frozen in time and fail to evolve. Now, I saw Creed 2. I'm not going to give too much away, but they do humanize him as they should. because he is a human being. He was a human being in Rocky IV who was being controlled by the government, controlled. He was, really a puppet for the government, which is a lot. American heroes are used the same way, I guess. But who couldn't really speak English, and so he came across as that, right? But people change over 30 years. And the night of the fight in Rocky IV, Ivan Drago's life changed after he loses that fight, right? If they had Creed 2 and he was still the 100% exact same guy as he was when he was that 25-year-old, kid, that would have been ridiculous. That would have been really dumb. I love the way they handled Ivan Drago and his son Victor in Creed 2. And I think your worst fear will come true, but that's a good thing. It's a good thing. Because what you were hoping for would have been a bad thing, Rogue. Take my word for that. All right. Wesley Cunningham writes, do you think Marvel will add more significance to Stan Lee's Avengers 4 cameo, especially if it is his last? Well, it won't be his last. Like I said, they filmed other ones. He will appear in Spider-Man Far From Home, all that kind of stuff. And no, you shouldn't add extra relevance to it. And by the way, Avengers 4 isn't his next appearance. His next appearance is Captain Marvel. Let's not forget that. Stan Lee's next appearance in a cameo is not Avengers 4. It's going to be Captain Marvel. So let's keep that in mind. But I would also say they should not add extra importance to it or add extra oomph to it, because that only plays in the moment. When we watch it 7 years later, it's going to feel odd and out of place. They should do his cameo the way they always do his cameos. That's what's going to feel best. That's going to feel most right. And that's going to feel most comfortable and most endearing. Don't make something else out of it, because we'll know that the only reason they did that is because he just recently died. But then that becomes very dated very quickly a few years down the line. I say you do his cameo the way you do his cameo, and you end it at that. And then we look forward to his next cameo in Avengers 4. And then we look forward to his next cameo in Spider-Man Far From Home. And then we look forward to his next cameo up until however many cameos they shot with him. And that's how I feel they should do it. But maybe you guys disagree, and that's totally fine. I could have my mind changed, but right now that's how I feel about it. All right. Jokage13 writes, hey, John, after seeing the Creed trailers, it got me thinking, what if Creed ended tragically with Creed losing, not dying, but losing by KO? Again, this is one that came out. Creed just hit theaters this past weekend. I've already seen it. Most of you have already seen it, but I don't want to give away any spoilers just in case. So I got to not say anything to that. Sorry about that, Jokerage, but I can't say anything to that just in case I get into spoiler territory, because it's only been in theaters for like a week at this point. Darren TB100 writes, my favorite trilogy is The Matrix. Really? If the film was a documentary and The Matrix is real, what color pill would you take? Keep up the great work. I can't remember if the red or the blue one is the one to stay in The Matrix. Man, I don't know. It's tough. I mean, it does present a tough moral question, because, like, I'm the type of guy, and I wonder if this has happened to you too, where you're asleep and you're having an awesome dream and you're doing something awesome, whether it's with you're flying, or whether it's you're at the most insane event of your life, or you're with the girl of your dreams, or whatever. Something awesome is happening in the dream. And then you wake up and you realize you're dreaming, and you're like, no, get back to sleep. Get back to sleep, and hopefully I can get back to that dream, right? I've done that. No, go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. So you could, because you think you can get back into that. So I don't know. The real world, or a blissful, with blissful ignorance, but a blissful artificial reality that you never know about. Because there's that one great scene where Cypher is talking to Agent Smith, and Cypher, part of making the deal, Cypher says, I don't want to remember anything. Nothing, because that ruins it, right? So I don't know. It's a great moral question. I don't think I've ever come up with a definitive answer for myself. Let's see. Stubble McShave writes, Stan Lee is on the Mount Rushmore of all pop culture. I don't know. It depends on... My first reaction is to say yes, but it really all depends on how we define pop culture, because it's kind of a loose term that can encompass a lot of different things. My first reaction is to say yes, but who knows? Stubble McShave writes, will Marvel ever do standalones like a Marvel story? They already do standalones. They do standalones. Captain Marvel is coming out, set in the 1990s. Does that not work? Captain America, the first Avengers, was set in a different period of time. Ant-Man was a standalone MCU movie. So will they ever do it? They already do it, right? Unless you mean something different, but they already do standalone films. Rufino Salazar Jr. writes, hey, John, my wife finally saw Christopher Robin, was exactly what she needed, a bunch of cuteness, her words. Question is it possible for part 2? I don't know. Not everybody loved Christopher Robin. I really enjoyed it. The first act is a little rough. I understand what they were going for, but the first act was a little bit of a stumble, and it lost some people. And I think once you lose people in a movie, it's tough to get them back, even if Act 2 and Act 3 are really good. It's tough to get an audience back once they emotionally divest themselves of the movie. Once they've checked out of a movie, it's hard to get somebody back in. And I think one of the main reasons we see a number of negative reviews about Christopher Robin is because the first act was a little bit rough. And I think a bunch of people checked out of the movie at that point. And that's what we as film fans do sometimes. Anyway, the reality was the film struggled at the box office. I don't think it made $200 million, as a matter of fact. Hold a second. Let me look up Christopher Robin box office. Yeah, it never even hit $200 million in total. It came in at $197.1 million. And Christopher Robin wasn't a super expensive movie to make, but it wasn't a cheap movie to make either. I think they probably lost money on Christopher Robin. They probably lost money on, maybe not a huge amount of money, but they probably lost money. No, I don't foresee them doing a sequel, unfortunately. I don't think that's in the cards. Okay, let's see. Where are we at now? Justin, where are we? Justin Winnick writes, do you think Fantastic Beasts are sequels to the Harry Potter books just told on film like the play? I didn't find it nearly as confusing since I'm a huge Harry Potter book fan. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. First of all, I've never seen the play, so I don't care. Fantastic Beasts are sequels in a way to the Harry Potter book. Prequels, I suppose, is the technical term. I'm not a huge Harry Potter book fan, and I didn't find the movies confusing. They weren't exactly simple, but I didn't find them confusing, and I'm not a Potterhead, and I've never read the books, and I never intend on reading the books. But I found it perfectly okay to follow, so I don't know. For me, it was perfectly fine to follow. I never really had any issue with it. And I liked Fantastic Beasts too. I like Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald. I thought it was good. Dropkick Aggie writes, hey, John, longtime listener. Love The Last Jedi, but not the casino. Oh God, yeah. It felt like we were still on Earth and everyone was cosplaying. Well, see, here's the thing. You could make the same argument about the cantina scene in the original Star Wars, but we all love that. Why? Because of how it was handled. The cantina scene didn't feel cringy, and it didn't feel obvious that, we're making a movie. Look at this. I hated the Canto Bite stuff. Hated it. Everything from the casino itself to the pointless horse run that had no bearing on the narrative of the movie whatsoever. Everything about the Canto Bite scene sucked. Just sucked. And it got us introduced to this character that really was misused in the Del Toro character, the Benicio Del Toro character. Total waste. And I'm somebody who likes The Last Jedi. I like The Last Jedi. But I will stand shoulder to shoulder with those who hated The Last Jedi to bitch and complain about the Canto Bites. I hated that scene. I thought it was complete waste. There are a number of things I had issues with in The Last Jedi, but by far, the worst was that Canto Bight stuff, man. But it's not because it was a casino. That's fine. Just like it's fine that A New Hope had a cantina. That's fine. It's all about what you do in it that matters. And they just did not execute that Canto Bight stuff, and they had a bunch, like that horse run scene was pointless. And I've always said this, action in a movie without narrative purpose is visual noise. It's a phrase I coined talking about like the last couple of Transformers movies. Action without narrative purpose is just visual noise. Speaking of Fantastic Beasts, there was a scene in Fantastic Beasts involving, I won't say anything that spoils it, but I'll just say involving the cats. That's all I'm going to say. That was an action scene without any narrative purpose and was just pointless to have in the movie. And it's not exciting. When there's no narrative purpose to action, it's not exciting. It's not thrilling. It's not engaging. It's just visual noise. And almost everything that happened on Canto Bight was just that. It was a waste of time and just visual noise. But that's just the way I saw it at any rate. All right. Tin Trong writes, better movie, The Rock or True Lies? Well, listen, I love The Rock. I love The Rock. It's great. Your best. Losers whine about their best while winners fuck the prom queen. Oh, Sean Connery. Oh, Sean Connery. I love The Rock. The Rock is great, but True Lies, you guys who've watched me for a long time, you might know this, is my all-time favorite action film. True Lies is my all-time favorite action film. You know what? She probably stole the money for an abortion. The movie's so damn funny. And it's exciting and great. Arnold at his best. Jamie Lee Curtis at her best. Oh my God. Tia Correa. Who to this day is a hot woman, but just the hottest in her life. She was so great in that. The tango scene with her and Arnold. Yeah. So as much as I love True Lies, I got to say, my friends, I got to say The Rock. All right. Stubborn McShave writes, would Bronson and Clint make your top 5 action list? You know what? Very legit question. I'm going to say no. Because while a number of their films are all-time classics, right? Death Wish, Dirty Harry, all that kind of stuff. They were never action stars, To me, to be a legit action star means there's got to be a certain level of excellence with the physicality of being an action star. When I think of that, I think of like Charles Bronson, of Clint Eastwood. I think of them as great movie stars, just great movie stars who were in a number of action films, but they're great movie stars. But when you're talking about, depending on your definition, by me, I think there has to be a certain level of excellence with the physicality involved in being an action star in an action movie. To me, then you're talking about guys like Jackie Chan. Then you're talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're talking about Sylvester Stallone. You're talking about Jason Statham. You're talking about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You're talking about, these guys who, are part of the action. So again, if we change the definition, maybe I would put Bronson and Eastwood in there. But again, I think of those guys more as movie stars. Whereas guys like Dwayne Johnson, Jason Statham, guys of that ilk, I think of as action stars. So I would say no. I would not put them on my top 5 action star list. T. Kane writes, hey, John, love the show. Thank you so much, T. Kane. Let's see. Question. Do you think this season of Supernatural is leading to Earth 2 Michael versus Caged Michael? Thanks. I don't know. I am 1 or 2 episodes behind. So nothing up until what I've watched suggests any of that. So you may have just given me a spoiler. I don't know. But I don't know. All I know is this. I'm enjoying this season. They're doing some things they've never done before, which is pretty cool. I am missing Crowley. I'm missing a couple of those elements, but just being able to hang out with the guys, Sam and Dean, Castiel is there too. I like the addition that their mom has been the last couple of seasons. I'm digging it. I'm just having a good time with it. Eddie Herrera writes, do you think we can expect a dedication to Stan Lee in the upcoming animated Spider-Man movie? That's interesting. It's a Sony pick, but it is Spider-Man. And Sony put Stan Lee cameos in their Spider-Man movies. I would not be terribly surprised if we don't get an animated cameo. Remember, Stan Lee had an animated cameo in Big Hero 6, right? He was T.J. Miller's character's dad, I believe. So Stan Lee had an animated cameo in Big Hero 6. I wouldn't put it by them to have an animated cameo of Stan Lee in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Why not? So I'm not predicting they will, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. So I believe there will be some mention of Stan Lee, whether it's a cameo or a, dedicated to Stan Lee or something like that. But I think it's going to go even further than just the dedicated line. I think we're going to get a cameo. That's what I think. All right. Hector Jeter writes, "Hey, Gio, I'm back and caught up with your shows." Okay, awesome. Sorry to say this, but I actually enjoy watching Christmas with the Cranks. I get a kick out of it. Tim, why am I forgetting the guy who does the voice of Buzz Lightyear? Tim. Why am I forgetting Tim's name? Anyway, and the aforementioned Jamie Lee Curtis is in that as well. Yeah, I hate that. But you know what? That's the subjectivity of film, Hector. Why am I freezing? Tom Hanks and Tim. I'm sorry, guys. I got to look it up. Toy Story, Tim Allen. Why was I freezing on Tim Allen's name? Anyway, Christmas with the Cranks, Tim Allen, Jamie Lee Curtis, freezing on some of the other people who are in it. I think it's awful. I think that movie's terrible, but that's the subjectivity of film, man. So don't you apologize for liking what you like. You like it. That's great. I think it's terrible, and we can have a discussion about what you think there is to like in it, and I'll discuss what I think there is to not like it. But at the end of the day, you don't need to apologize for liking something other people don't like. Never say sorry. And especially now they're coming into the Christmas season, spread the joy. You go ahead and you watch Christmas with the Cranks. I won't, but you go ahead and watch it some more, Hector. All right. Degato1 writes, "With the latest Fantastic Beasts being the first rotten Harry Potter movie, do you think Warner Brothers will replace David Yates? I like him, but they need someone new." It's hard to say. Because for you guys who've watched me for a while, I believe a director shouldn't stay on a franchise too long. I just got to look up something. Fantastic Beasts and where to find them. IMDb. All right, so I just need to look up this little piece of information here because I got to see this. I'm not sure who the screenwriter was. No, apparently the screenwriter was J.K. Rowling. I remember J.K. Rowling never wrote any of the screenplays for any of the Harry Potter films, but she has written the screenplays for the Fantastic Beasts films. And in general, the Fantastic Beasts films have not been as well received as the Harry Potter films. Now, I like the Fantastic Beasts films more than most people do. I'm not jumping up and down about them, but I quite like them. I can't help but wonder if David Yates isn't the issue, and rather J.K. Rowling is the issue. There is a big difference between writing a book and writing a screenplay. There's a very, very big difference. And there's a reason why for all the Harry Potter movies, they hired screenwriters to take J.K.'s material and adapt it properly into a screenplay format in a way that works and blah, blah, blah. And of course, she had final approval on everything, but it's a different beast. No pun intended. But it's a different beast, right? And while I am a guy who's like, yes, after a director's been on a film for like a couple, I've been on one franchise for a couple of films, I think they should move on just to keep themselves sharp. And there are exceptions, but generally that's how I feel. Generally. There are exceptions, but that's generally how I feel. I cannot help but wonder if maybe the issue here is J.K. Rowling herself. And maybe the issue here is, you know what? Get J.K. to write a treatment, to write the story, and then take that and hand it off to a screenwriter to build a proper screenplay around that story. Maybe then you'd have better results. I'm not guaranteeing that's what it is, but it is something that's crossed my mind. All right. Hector Jeter writes, to this day, I still don't know the purpose of those red timer shields in episode 1. Obviously, it was to keep Qui-Gon away from Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn for the duel. Yes, but that's That's a plot hole. That's a plot device, right? So for those of you who don't remember what he's talking about, remember in the big final fight between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul, they eventually get to that place where these red shields turn on and off, right? That eventually separate Darth Maul and Qui-Gon from Obi-Wan Kenobi. And that's why, Qui-Gon has to take on Darth Maul by himself for a while Obi-Wan stood there helpless, just staring, right? I understand it's a plot device. They needed to come up with something to separate them. But that was one of the most idiotic things I've ever seen in my life. And as much as I don't like The Phantom Menace, that's a great scene. I love the scene. I love the Maul, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi fight. I think it's a wonderful scene. But even though I love that scene, that was one of the most stupid, idiotic, obvious plot devices I had ever seen. Wait a minute, why do these semi-time shields come on and off? Well, to separate Obi-Wan from Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn. Yeah, but say they weren't there. Why would they have that? Well, to separate Obi-Wan and... No, I get that. But let's say they weren't there. Like they hadn't been there once ever in their lives before. Why did somebody build those things? What was the purpose of those things? Well, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It was idiotic. It was dumb. I don't get it, even though I love the scene myself. So here we are. What was it? 20 years since that movie came out? 20 years later, I still have no idea what the hell they were thinking. And I don't think anybody else really does. Anyway, that will do it, guys, for today's installment, and this one particular installment of the companion videos. There are more companion videos coming this weekend. If you are somebody who sent in a question and it still hadn't been answered, don't worry. I still got lots of them lined up here. We've got still a couple more companion videos to go this weekend. That will do it for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until our next video, bye-bye.